Hey guys, so today we're here for something a little different. I have never done anything like this on my channel, considering most of my channel for a long time was like anime reviews. Whew, and then that kind of changed. Now I kind of do a little bit of everything. I just do what I'm interested in now. And because of that, this is gonna be something a little bit on the fun side for me. So you might not know this, but even though I have this bookshelf over here, that's well, that's actually manga, I think. This one over here is actually the bookshelf. So, even though I have that bookshelf right there, I actually haven't read like 90% of the books over there, and that's mainly because I'm the type of person that never finds the time to like read. Well, recently, within the last year, a year or two really, I've been trying to read at least a little bit every night, even if it's just a few pages, and I managed to reread an old book of mine. Now, see, what you may not know, what you may not also know, is that I was a really fucking trash kid. And I don't mean just with like anime and manga. There was a period of time when we didn't have internet, and I'm talking about like we had it, and then for some reason, I don't know if my parents, whatever happened, but we didn't have it for several months. And so I took to reading to take up my time. But you know, what I really liked reading, because I was really into fanfics at the time, was really kind of shitty romance novels. Yes, today we're going to be talking about this book, which I reread because I remember being a kid and being like, oh my god, romance, ugh. And now, I mean, yeah, okay, romantic things are still nice, but I mean like, you know, this kind of weird idealized romance. And I reread it because I remember being like, oh, I really like it. And we're going to see how I feel about it now. So let's jump right into it. Alright, so first off, you can tell how old this is because it's actually really fucking beat up. And so this book is actually The Darkest Night by Gina Showalter, and it's part of the Lords of the Underworld series, which is just about these pretty handsome, awesome boys that we're going to be getting into when I talk about this book. So this book is really about two characters. I mean, there's a bunch of other characters, but the two main characters are Maddox, if I'm saying that right, and Ashlyn. Ashlyn has this kind of paranormal ability, if you will, that allows her to hear conversations that have taken place in any particular place she's been in. So for instance, let's say in my bedroom, if I had a conversation with my boyfriend about fucking lobsters like 7 years ago, if she were to walk into my bedroom, she would hear that conversation and any other conversations that might have gone on in the bedroom. She would hear like everything that could happen. And those voices really fuck with her, and so she turns into kind of a homebody, kind of a almost arguably paranoid homebody, just because, you know, she's always, people are going to talk about her. She knows because she hears it. But she works for an institution that allows her to come into contact with paranormal beings. They use her kind of ability to hear conversations in the past of rumors or even mythical beings or beings of like legend or people just don't think exist, like angels and stuff. They hear conversations that happen and she manages to find them, and the institution gains knowledge from them. Now, Maddox is an ancient warrior that was cursed by the gods after he killed a fellow warrior named Pandora out of jealousy. They all these warriors of the Lords of the Underworld series, they band together and they, out of jealousy for the most part, killed Pandora to get to Pandora's box because they were not trusted with guarding it. And when doing that, they unleashed the demons into the world, and the gods cursed them by making them house these demons. If I'm remembering this correctly, there's also another curse. There's also Maddox's specific curse, which is, since he is the one who killed Pandora, I believe it was 6 stab wounds in the stomach, he must die the same way every single day, which probably really fucking sucks, but hey, what are you gonna do, my guy? So those are the two main characters, kind of just a brief version of it. I don't need to give you this I'm just giving you like spark notes. I'm not giving you a whole detailed summary about this. So really, the main meat of the story, and this is where I'm not gonna go into super details, but the main meat of this story, because this is a romance novel, is building up to what I call the big fuck. So the main build-up is to the big fuck. Ashlyn meets Maddox, and the reason that there's a sort of passion between them is that Ashlyn, because Ashlyn has been looking for these people. She's been sent by the institution. She's looking for these lords or angels, as the locals call them. And when she manages to find one after a certain encounter, she realizes that he makes the voices stop. And that immediately she's like, whoa, because, you know, she's never had that happen. Maddox, for some reason, if I'm remembering correctly, and now I'm just saying this because I'm not 100% sure. But when he sees her, he has this certain fire in him, you know, violence, because he houses violence. Violence just doesn't want to be violent. He kind of wants to be, in a way, sexually violent. Like, it's a little weird. Not like in the abusive way, but it's more like instead of turning the anger into violence, the demon in him wants to turn into something else. And he just really on Maddox's part, if I remember correctly, he just thinks she's like really fucking attractive. Like, if I'm remembering correctly, I could be 100% wrong on this. I just finished reading it, but I read it over a span of a while, so I could be wrong about this, but to be frank, it would not change my feelings on it, and you'll see why in a second. So like I said, it really is building up to the big fuck, and in between, and I'm being dead serious when this is like 70% of the book is build up to the big fuck. Because the whole, like, Maddox's whole thing is that he just really wants to have sex with Ashlyn. Like, that's his whole thing, his whole plan. He takes her to the fortress that he really shouldn't do. All of his buddies are like, my dude, she could be bait, like, because the people who are hunting them down, known as the hunters, will very frequently use women as bait, either to, like, you know, the guy of Promiscuity, Paris, in it, I think he brought a hunter home to have sex with her because promiscuity, he has to, and, you know, she was bait, so she got in, tried to kill them. You know, people, like, they try, and because women seem more fragile and more trustworthy, they use women very frequently as bait. So they're like, dude, she's bait, we're gonna have to fucking kill her, like, what are you doing? You're exposing us. And he's just like, no, you don't understand. And so he brings her to his room, and and in the build up to the big fuck, a couple things happen. They get cucked by like a million things. So he tries to wine and dine her with like cheeses and wines, but he accidentally gives her ambrosia of the gods, and so she almost fucking dies. And then these other women come in because it's set up for a different guy's romantic bullshit. So there's that. Reyes, who has his pain, it's the setup for him. You know, there's the stuff going on when they get attacked at the nightclub, and like they're locking her up in the basement. Like, there's a couple different, they're gonna do it in the shower, but then he's like, no, we're not gonna do it right now. And so, like I said, there's several just like almost fucks, but not quite. And then we get to and it's like the story is like not really going on, like stuff is happening, but it doesn't feel like it's happening quick enough. And you know, we're building up to this whole thing where the gods are trying to kill these girls because of their bloodlines. The Titans have control of like the stuff going on with the gods, and then the gods are trying to make I believe it's Aaron who houses Wrath. They're trying to make him go fucking out of control and kill these girls and do something else. Like, there's stuff going on, but it feels like shit really doesn't start happening until after the big fuck. Like, immediately after when they have sex, and which, by the way, I could not read the sex scene. I'm not a prude. Let me tell you what, you know, I'm really not. As someone who does still read fan fiction, like, some of the sex scenes in there can be really fucking graphic sometimes and really hardcore, and some of them are really bad. And let me tell you, the sex scenes in this, I hate the way they're written. They're fucking I don't want to say amateur, like I'm like, oh, I know what I'm talking about. But they have weird lines that are like, I don't know. It's just, I don't want to say it, but they're just, the way the dialogue is, it's just so... it's just so bad. It's really not good. That's my personal opinion. I think it's really bad. And I was like, okay, I don't want to cringe my way through this, so I'm just gonna kind of skim it and just skip it because I want to get to the plot part. And then within it's straight up like the last 70 pages or something. That is where most of the plot comes out. And what happens is that you find out that Ashlyn actually technically, in a way, was bait. She didn't know it, but her organization and the guy who raised her is the hunters. They are the hunters. They just kept it a secret from her in a specific way because they knew she'd be able to hear it. He had raised her after her parents pretty much gave her up for being a weirdo, essentially, because he knew that she could benefit him. And what she didn't know was that when they found these paranormal beings, while they did help, like, get knowledge from them, ultimately they fucking died. All of them died because Macintosh, the guy who raised her and is like the vice president or something of the hunters, he was like, you stamp out evil when you see it. So all these people, and what she thought was birth control, what they told her was birth control inserted in her arm, was a GPS signal. They've always been able to find her. So, you know, she gets kidnapped. The hunters ended up taking her. They take some of these other girls. They accidentally unleash a disease. You know, one of the guys almost dies. It's like all this stuff's happening with that. Because they fucked up and didn't know about disease, they all just died of disease. Like, literally, one of the things I don't like about this, like, I kind of don't like the whole thing now, but one of the specific things I don't like is that Ashley doesn't really do anything. Like, at least not in that particular scenario. She gets kidnapped, and she doesn't, like, talk with her. She can't really talk herself out of getting out of the situation with Macintosh. She doesn't fight her way out. What essentially happens is she just stalls for time, and then Macintosh fucking drops dead because he's dying of disease. Like, that's straight up what fucking happened. And then she just walks out, pretty much. And I'm like, alrighty then. And meanwhile, there's a goddess talking to her, being like, hey man, there's sacrifices, think about it. This is set up also partially for Lucian's story, which is in fact the next in the series. And because Anya's gonna be his love interest, ooh. And so she makes it back. Turns out she gets sick. She almost dies from disease. Somehow she doesn't because Maddox takes her to a doctor or whatever. Then she comes back. Then when she gets better, she comes back and is like, hey, sacrifice. I'll sacrifice my life so Maddox doesn't have to die every night. They're like, sick, cool, except for Maddox. He doesn't know. So she ends up dying for him. And then Anya the goddess is like, hey man, I could bring her back, but like, you gotta help me out when I need some help because see, I'm doing like a rebellion thing here and they're really not liking it. So I'm gonna need your help. Maddox is like, sick, get my girl. So she revives like Ashlyn, and that's kind of the end of the story. There's like a little bit at the end where it's like you learn a little bit of what happened in the aftermath, and Ashlyn's like helping them out with like the rumors she's heard being like, you know, with her ability and everything like that about Pandora's box, because they're looking for it because they can't, if they get it. So Pandora's box, the thing about it is if they open it and try and return the demons, they'll die. The demons have like molded with them at this point. Like it's part of their fucking soul or something. So if they try and remove the demons, they will just fucking die. And they're looking for the box because if anybody else gets the box, like it's going to be bad news bears. And they've been on and off looking for the box, but due to Maddox's curse, Pain and Lucian, who's Death, so Pain and Death have not been able to really leave for too long because they need to fucking kill him at midnight. They were also bound by that curse. And so the end of the book is kind of just them being like, hey, we're gonna go look for this box. And so the next story is Lucian, known as Pain, Lucian known as Death, I think he smells like roses or like flowers or something. It's gonna be his story. And it's going to be with Anya the goddess. And I don't know if I'm going to read it. Because honestly, this book was kind of not great. It was made in 2000, I think 7 or 2008. I believe it was 2008. And I'm going to be real with you. I don't necessarily think it's 100% like a bad book. But I really think she could have done better if she had more stuff going in the beginning. There was a lot of emphasis, like a lot of emphasis on how much they kind of just wanted to bone each other, and that's like fine and all, but considering that this has a lore to it where it's like the lords who they were like warriors, Pandora's box, people are like hunting it down, you know, all that, they have the demons inside of them. I would have liked to learn more about stuff going on with that, but then it started to feel like her lore was like really superficial and kind of just like on the face of it, because even then I really didn't feel like the characters interacted in any meaningful way. I felt like there was a lot of like, especially with Ashlyn and Maddox, I felt like it was a lot of just like sexual tension, and like I said, that's fine. These books, like these romance books, especially the ones I bought when I was a kid, like that kind of was a lot of it. But being an adult now, I really want more in my story and not just like, ooh, they kind of want a bone. But you can have that level of sexual tension, but also like interesting stuff going on. And maybe it's just the characters, but in the book I'll talk about next time, because I'm going to be doing a whole thing, is going to be Visions of Heat by Nalini, I think Nalini Sai or Singe or what, I don't know how to pronounce her name. Fuck me, right? But This is actually the second book in the series, and I never finished the first one. Like, I didn't even, when I read this, I didn't know it was a second book. But I'm rereading this one because I like it. In that one, there's a lot of, like, sexual tension stuff going on, but I also feel like I get a lot of lore and a lot of information, because there's whole chapters or whole sections where the characters are doing, like, their own thing, and they're talking to other people, and they're, like, I'm learning about the, like, because in that book, there's, like, Psy, and there's were people, and, like, regular humans, and I'm learning about each group, depending on who the book's about, and I really, really like that. So, it's like, then I get to this book, and I remember, and it's funny, she did another book I own, I think it's called The Nymph King or something, and though I haven't reread that, I feel like I'm gonna run into the same problem from what I remember, and especially since it's called The fucking Nymph King, like, oh my god. And I'm not trying to say she's a bad writer, because, like, some people are like it, and, like, this isn't necessarily a terrible style of writing. It's just personally for me, I kind of wanted something different, and as a young girl, I vibed with it real hard, apparently. But as an adult, I'm like, there's some things I appreciate more now, and I don't, like, as an adult, for me, I personally, if you like a good story, at the very least, the first book doesn't give it to you. I don't personally think so. I do want to actually read the second book in the series, because sometimes that can just be better. Like, I'm not, like, it's just a thing. They get better with writing, or it's because in the first book they sometimes, like, establish the story, and then they can build on it more in subsequent books. So I'm gonna give the second book a shot eventually, whenever I get around to it. I don't own it, so I'd have to buy it. But the first book, kind of disappointed, because I definitely did not like it as much as I remember liking it. So let me know in the comments below if you ever read this book, what did you think of it? And even if you didn't read this book, can you think of any old, like, either romance books or just books in general that you read as a child that you, like, reread now or look at now and you're like, oh my god, why did I like it? Because that's kind of how I felt with reading this, and I'm just like, how many more pages? You know what I mean? So I'll talk to you guys later. I'll see you next time. Bye!